I'm joined by sophomore diver Amanda McGraw of the Bearcats swim and dive team. Amanda, thanks for taking some time out of your busy quarantine lockdown schedule. I know you're busier than some of us during this time, some others. First question, easiest one. How are you doing?
I've been doing pretty well since I've been home. It hasn't been too much of an adjustment for me, I would say, because I'm still working for my parents from home. They're in the medical field, so they've been doing they've they're technically an essential business. So that has sort of took place of what my job usually is at school for the ESPN production crew. Other than that, I've just been trying to stay on top of my schoolwork day to day and try to get in at least a small workout if I can every day.
You mentioned your parents still going to work, you helping them out. Is there any unease, especially given that they, work in the medical field or, in a business associated with the medical field? Is there any
Mhm.
unease for either them or you going out when everyone else is kind of apprehensive to do so?
Well, so they have a pretty small company, so we're still remaining isolated. It's just really my family still working from the office for them. So I don't feel like any of us are going beyond the boundaries that we're supposed to abide from for the quarantine. So I wouldn't say it's uneasy in that way, but it's definitely stressful just knowing that we don't really know when all of this is going to end. And we could just really only be fortunate to still have a job right now. So,
And what type of work is it that you're doing?
well, they do billing for medical practices. I usually just help with the paperwork and do like scanning or like filing or do it. I usually do the mail. It's not, it's nothing that has to be done every day, so it's not as pressing while I still continue to keep up with all of my classes.
I know one of the struggles for many people, stuck at home for this new normal is adjusting to the schedules and finding a new routine for a for someone who's on the swim and dive team who's used to being in the pool by 6 a.m. and having some 8 a.m. classes. What's your routine like these days?
Well, usually I try to get up relatively early. I try to be up by like 9 or so I can get going with my day. And depending on what my class schedule looks like for that day, I'll either go into work for a couple hours first, or most of the time I like to get my schoolwork done out of the way before work. Um, Other than that, I eat a lot throughout the day. Food is always accessible, which is, I would say, a pro and a con for many of us who have to stay at home. But it's definitely the food that we have at home is definitely more appetizing than the dining halls, and it's certainly healthier for us. So I think that's a positive side of being home for the whole day.
On the academic side of things, obviously classes transitioning to online only. Um, what are some of the pros and cons and some of the adjustments that you've had to make there?
One pro, I guess, is being able to watch lectures from wherever I would like to. As it gets nicer out, it's nice to be able to take a class outside, whereas instead of being inside in the classroom listening to the professor in person, I guess that could be a pro and con when it comes to being able to stay focused and on task during those lectures. But other than that, I would say I there aren't many pros. It's really hard. I think it's really hard to keep up with the schoolwork with pressures of internships. Many of us are had internships for the summer that we no longer have. And that's hard because we don't know if that option will be available next summer or what's going to happen. Um, but I think some cons of doing school online is for group projects and labs. I was in a lab called engineering computing, and the professor decided to just cancel the labs for the rest of the semester. since it's a coding class and we can't really learn it online by ourselves. Um, Other than that, I would say the only other thing is finals are probably approaching a lot faster than we saw them coming, because when we had to make the transition to online, many professors extended due dates. So our midterms were later, therefore the finals are way closer than they were supposed to be to the other tasks that we had.
Obviously a transition period for professors as well, as they try to figure out how to teach online as much as you are trying to figure out how to learn online. How have you seen, what have you seen from any of your professors in terms of any understanding that, as you said, a lot of them extended due dates and things like that? What have you seen from them in terms of trying to make this as easy on you?
Most of my professors have been pretty lenient through this all, and very understanding. One of my professors, it was his last year before he was retiring, so he actually still has to go to campus to record his lectures, because he said he doesn't have the proper technology at home. So he's been very understanding and considerate. I know many of the professors, I think, have realized by now that they don't really know what's going on at home for any of the students. So it's hard to remain strict with their policies like they would have been if we were still at Binghamton.
And I know from an athletic standpoint, it's kind of a unique time for you as well, as you're trying to stay in shape. And as somebody on the swim and dive team, all the pools are basically closed. So you can't really even participate in your primary activity. How are you trying to stay fit and stay in shape?
It's definitely way harder to stay in shape for a swimmer or diver than if we were able to go into the pool. But I've been just trying to do something every day, physically active, to just do whatever I can to be in the best shape I can be under the circumstances for when we're able to go back in the pool. I've been trying to just go on runs every so often, or do a core workout or do something a little different every day to stay balanced and just keep up with everything. One thing that I've realized from this is that for athletes that have injuries, I think this is an appropriate time to take off, since no one really has a choice. And I think that could be looked at as a silver lining to everything that's going on for injured athletes, at least, because they probably wouldn't have been taking off this time if we were still able to do everything we could.
On the flip side of that, it is certainly a good time to kind of rest and kind of rejuvenate yourself. But for somebody who has probably spent a good majority of their time in the pool since they were probably a little kid, how tough is it to kind of be forced away from your sport for this long of a period of time?
It's honestly very hard. I think more mentally than physically, just knowing that when we get back, we don't know our standpoint. And I think for each grade, it's a little bit different. So for the freshmen, I think it might be the most difficult going into a sport, and the coach possibly having high expectations of where their times or their scores, or however it's however their sport is scored. But it's hard for us to know how we're going to actually get back into our routine. I feel like many of us won't be able to get back exactly to where we left off by the beginning of our season. So I think it's been hard to keep up with it, but also hard mentally to realize how much we're all being affected by this.
From a personal standpoint, how, aside from academics and athletics, and I know you're working too, so you're fairly busy, but what are you doing to kind of keep yourself busy and entertained and prevent you from going stir crazy? Any new hobbies you've picked up or any fun activities around the house?
Yeah, actually, I started reading a book for the first time, I think voluntarily in a long time, if I have ever done that before. And it's been entertaining and it's a good way to kill time and um, get some more knowledge, I guess, depending on what type of books you like to read. I've also been watching way more movies than I've ever really given myself time to put into, which has been entertaining. Other than that, I've been spending a lot of time with my family, and I've two sisters. They're both seniors. One's in high school, one's in college. So I've been spending plenty of time with them, which um, has been enjoyable for me.
What movies have you watched so far? And I guess a quick one sentence review of maybe your favorite one.
Um, I watched Good Will Hunting. I would recommend it for to anyone. It's with Robin Williams. It was pretty long, but it was a really good movie. I think for anyone that hasn't watched it, now would be a good time.
Certainly a good one. Certainly a good one. You mentioned you have two sisters, both, one senior in college, one in high school. Certainly, things are kind of in limbo for a lot of schools around the country for graduations and proms and, kind of these, lifetime milestones for a lot of young people. Being so close to two people going through kind of that, that struggle, what have you seen in terms of, how hard that can be?
It's definitely hard for both of them in different ways. For my older sister, unfortunately, her commencement was just moved to online. So she knows as of right now that she won't be having an in-person graduation, which is something that I'm sure she's been looking forward to ever since she started college or possibly even in high school. So that is hard for, I think, our whole family, including my parents. And my younger sister she doesn't have a senior prom. She isn't having the day where everyone wears their college shirts. They aren't having, most likely won't have a graduation. Um, so it's different. She just committed to University at Buffalo, which is where my older sister goes to. And luckily, my older sister she's doing her master's next year. So it wasn't like she had a job opportunity this summer that was lost, luckily for her. But I feel for the seniors, I think the most, because especially seeing it from the standpoint of being a sophomore and having someone above me and below me going through it. I feel like most of them didn't have enough closure that they deserved at the end of their year.
Any plans to maybe surprise either sister with, a homemade graduation ceremony or a homemade prom to kind of make them,
So when my younger sister committed to Buffalo a few days ago, my older sister and I decorated her room with different shirts. We already had a bunch of apparel for Buffalo since my older sister goes there. So we decorated her room and everything, but I'm sure we'll do something for my older sister when the time comes too.
That's cool.
Yeah.
For you, this year athletically, you showed some good signs of success going forward. How did you think you did this year, and what are you looking forward to try and turn some of your successes this year and to improve upon for next year?
I was overall very happy with how this season went, not only for me, but for the entire team. We started off the year with new coaching staff. Two of the three coaches were new to our team. So it was a transition at the beginning, but I think they did a very good job of keeping the team on top of everything and giving us workouts that were appropriate for the swimmers. And my coach was the same as we had last year. And I think on the diving side, we had a lot of successes throughout the year, especially at the America East Championships. And I think a goal for next year would be to have someone qualify for zones, which I know is very possible. And I'm confident that someone will qualify for the zone qualification next year.
You were named America East Diver of the Week once this year. You had third and fourth place finishes at the America East Championship meet. How do you build upon that personally for next year? And I'm sure your goal is to try and turn those third and fourth place finishes into hopefully first place finishes. I guess what steps can you take to maybe achieve those goals?
I think that honestly, as a diver, it's really important to encourage our teammates to build upon ourselves and just the team as a whole. I think it has showed that we had a lot more successful meets when the energy was up and everyone was cheering for each other. I think that's important to keep going. Other than that, I think just kind of go day by day, go into every meet as if it's a practice and not really try to get so worked up over it just because it's a bigger day than the last. But I think just, I guess, whatever I'm doing right now will show when we get back in the pool. So I think right now we don't really know what's going to happen, but it's important to just try to keep up athletically as well as academically for the rest of this pandemic.
And another aspect of your well-rounded schedule, you're a member of the athletics department broadcast production crew, helping us live stream games on ESPN3, ESPN Plus, America East TV. I know it was your first year with the crew. How did you enjoy that experience, and what were some of your favorite parts?
I really enjoyed working with the ESPN production crew. What I liked most about it, I think, is that I get to work with a lot of my teammates, not only on my team, but I've noticed that many of the people that work for you are also athletes from different teams. So it's nice to build connections with other sports teams. Also, we get to watch the games while we're either recording on camera or doing audio or replay. So from my freshman year, I went to a lot of the games anyways, so it's nice I can be doing two things at once. And other than that, I think it's cool to learn about communications, sort of, even though that's not what I'm interested in as a major. I think it's also a good quality to have, and just it's good to know more about different softwares and kind of how behind the scenes works.
Has working for the crew changed the way you watch sports on television? Obviously, right now there isn't a whole lot to watch, but if you were to flip on a basketball game, are you kind of seeing it a little differently than you might have?
Definitely. So obviously I grew up with two sisters, so we didn't really grow up watching football or baseball or really even basketball. So I definitely watched sports differently than I did before. I didn't know much about wrestling or about, as I said, baseball or basketball or any of those sports. We really just grew up doing gymnastics, cheerleading, diving, and like all sports that are more just that girls do. So I learned a lot about all of the sports that Binghamton has, and I'm happy that I got to learn everything, and I'm excited to work for the next 2 years.
You definitely got very involved with a lot of different positions. Was there any one position that you enjoyed more? And then to go off of that, is there any position you want to try more or get more into next year?
Yeah, I really enjoyed doing the graphics. I thought they were cool. I think I got caught on to it pretty quickly, so I liked doing them for a lot of the games. But to stay well-rounded, I'd like to probably do more camera work. I didn't do much of that this year, although it might be looked at as the easiest. It's not always the easiest depending on which angle you're trying to get. So I think Replay I really liked. Camera I'd like to do work on, and then possibly in the future, maybe even directing some of the games.
Cool. Well, certainly we will. I think I have some pull in that area. I think we can get you some more experience in those positions.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Amanda, thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to chat with us. Hope you and your family continue to all stay healthy and try not to drive each other too crazy being stuck in the house together.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And same to you and everything. I hope everyone's staying safe and doing whatever they can to do what we can to try to make this go away as fast as we can. So it's important for everyone to do their part. And I will continue to do that as well.
Definitely. I can't wait to see you and everybody else back on campus, hopefully
Yes.
sooner rather than later.
Yeah, me too.